And I think sometimes the simplest answer is like, they're just evil. They're bad people. They're just evil people. And they want to groom kids.
So surely she's talking about the Catholic Church. Surely she's talking about parents that have the same ideology as her, who are trying to send their kids to conversion therapy, which is literally just torture. Surely she's talking about the ideology and the political disposition that makes you more likely to support child marriage or arranged marriages, like the majority of states that still allow for child marriage being Republican, with the highest rates of child marriage being Republican states. Surely she's talking about people like Matt Walsh, who is literally on tape talking about the fertility of prepubescent, or I guess just pubescent girls. Like, surely that's who she's talking about here. So apparently, friend of Elon Musk, Chaya Raichik, aka Libs of TikTok, is in some hot water recently. Not only has she apparently recently infiltrated the Tucker Carlson program, she may have allegedly, people are speculating, infiltrated the Capitol on January 6th. Now, we don't know that for sure yet, but there is a convincing case to be made. So, Alejandra Caraballo, I wish I could say friend of the show, but not an oomphie yet. One day we'll get it. Posted a clip from that, and I figure we'll give it a sniff. Why not?
What is going on here? Do you have any theories?
What is going on here?
I think there's...
Oh, by the way, this is also the first time this pussy bitch finally revealed her face. And frankly, it's a bit busted. I would have hidden it as well. We don't do too much body shaming here, except for people that are also doing body shaming, you know? And it really isn't. She doesn't look that bad. I'm going to be honest with you. She really doesn't. However, for somebody who is so adamant about the fact that trans women cannot possibly be women and can't pass and all this, you know, I'm just saying. I thought I was the only egghead around here. That's all I'm saying.
There's something so unique about the LGBTQ community has become...
In that they're super poggers. I agree.
This cult, and it's so
never mind.
captivating. And it pulls people in so strongly.
Can you imagine, by the way, this Tucker Carlson studio, literal millionaire on a billionaire fucking platform? There's still this high-pitched whirring in the background of the audio. How do they not fix that yet?
Unlike anything we've ever seen. And they brainwash
Unlike anything we've ever seen, she says.
people to join, and they convince...
So that's not even to like mention other actual cults of the past that have actually existed and been really impactful to the world. Not to mention authoritarian regimes of the past that have existed and also indoctrinated people into their heinous beliefs. But it's the queer people. It is the biggest threat. We've never seen this before.
Convince them of all of these things. And it's really, really hard to get out of it. It's really difficult. And there are studies on this. Like there's been a lot of reporting on this about people, parents who are like, you know, my child is starting to say, you know, that they're non-binary or transgender or whatever. And what do I do? How do I stop this?
Stop it? How do I stop this? It's like, oh my God, my child says they're really into rock music, but in this house, we only listen to pop. How do I stop this? Like, what does it matter to you?
It's really, really difficult. It's unlike anything we've ever seen, I think. It's extremely poisonous.
What? Wait, so I wish she talked about, oh, well, what do they say to so-called stop it, right? Like, there's been a lot of reporting on this about people. Parents who are like, my child is starting to say they're non-binary or transgender or whatever. How do I stop this? Or like, what do I do? Well, what you do is, for one, you educate yourself on what that means. Because if a child can understand it, then surely your dumbass can. But secondarily, you do what you can to make your child live the best life possible, which would be to take your child seriously, not think that they've been indoctrinated into some cult that you have no evidence to support, and then whatever your child says their identity is, fuck it, let's go. If your kid says that they're non-binary or trans or whatever, they say they would like to be called by a different name or use different pronouns, or they'd like to dress like a boy even though they're a girl, you let them do it, because they're not hurting anybody. They're not hurting you. They're not hurting their siblings if they have any. They're not hurting themselves. They're not hurting anybody in society. They're just existing. If that's too much for you, you shouldn't have been a parent. I'm sorry. You should not have been a parent if you were not in a position to be an actual good, nurturing person to that child, should something like this come up. Because it's not impossible that it does, right? Like, you will have a child that's like, oh my God, I'm really into screamo music, and I want to get a raccoon tail in my hair, and I want to dye my hair and look like the scene girls on the internet. And it's like, okay, I suppose. Like, that's the level of difficulty we're talking about here. I guess the retort would be like, oh, well, when it comes to trans people, well, then they get on drugs and they get on surgeries. Like, for one, that doesn't happen. For two, it doesn't happen with parental consent anyway, until the child is old enough to be able to consent to medical procedures themselves, which can vary depending on the state that they're in. So, like, it's not just going to be happening. And secondarily, obviously, Chaya Raichik doesn't actually understand anything about trans science, doesn't understand anything about transgender people generally speaking, and specifically doesn't understand anything about the healthcare related to it, because children are not put on drugs incredibly early. Usually when we talk about children who are trans or questioning their gender and are transitioning, we're talking about social transition. Right-wingers like this are delusional and don't think that there's a difference. They conflate the two. There's a difference between socially transitioning and medically transitioning. To socially transition means that you essentially go by a different name, go by different pronouns, wear clothing that is gender nonconforming in that way. That's usually what's going to happen to really young kids. That's all they're doing. So little Johnny might want to try wearing a dress, and now he's little Josephina. Or I should say she. Sorry, I'm dead naming this hypothetical child. Right? Like, so that's literally all that is. And then eventually, when it gets to the point where they're potentially going to be going through puberty, then they go on puberty blockers. Potentially. Not all of them, but potentially. Which have been used to treat precocious puberty in cis children for a very long time. There is virtually zero negative side effects, no matter how much propaganda and lies you read from people like Chaya Raichik. And then, if it turns out they are trans, they go on to HRT into the future and go through a puberty that more aligns with their gender identity. And if they're not, they get off the puberty blocker and then go through a puberty that correlates to their biological sex. That's literally it. Very simple. Sorry. I don't know why I say all this, because if you're watching my channel, you've already heard all of this. It's very simple. But apparently, it's poisonous, and it's a cult that's indoctrinating them, and, some spooky cabal is pushing everybody to be transgender for whatever reason. I don't know that Chaya Raichik has ever talked about any of that. I have heard a lot of neo-Nazis talk about that, though, but, maybe we'll get to that.
Do you see a spiritual component to any of this?
Um...
You don't have to answer that if you don't want.
Right. At least she's not going into that, I guess. I was going to say, oh, well, maybe she thinks that's kind of ridiculous, but then I realized who we're dealing with. Because Tucker Carlson is literally insane. But maybe it's just that her actual beliefs in that way are too egregious, and she's not prepared to fully take the mask off. She did just show her face for the first time. But,
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I do. I don't think this makes sense at all.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And I think they're evil.
How can you I don't know. I don't know if it's any spiritual related, but I think they're literally evil. I think they are literally the envoy of Satan and are doing evil. Clearly you're just a pussy, but she always has been. Just say what you think. You're on Tucker Carlson's platform. This is a safe space for you and your bigoted beliefs.
And sometimes we try to break it down a lot, and we discuss why this is happening, what's happening, and whatever. And I think sometimes the simplest answer is they're just evil. They're bad people. They're just evil people, and they want to groom kids.
So surely she's talking about the Catholic Church. Surely she's talking about parents that have the same ideology as her, who are trying to send their kids to conversion therapy, which is literally just torture. Surely she's talking about the ideology and the political disposition that makes you more likely to support child marriage or arranged marriages, like the majority of states that still allow for child marriage being Republican, with the highest rates of child marriage being Republican states. Surely she's talking about those ones. Surely she's talking about people like Matt Walsh, who is literally on tape talking about the fertility of prepubescent, or I guess just pubescent girls. Surely that's who she's talking about here. So we're going to talk about how this is literally genocidal rhetoric. This is literally teetering on the edge of JQ posting about, oh, it's a cult and they're trying to indoctrinate kids, and, perhaps we're trying to lead to the end of the West or whatever, which is something I'm sure Tucker Carlson has talked about before, another weekend in Weimar, about how, oh, the Jewish people are trying to trans everybody to weaken the West or whatever. Now, obviously the main rebuttal to that from Chaya Raichik would be that apparently Chaya Raichik is Jewish. Good for you. But as we all know, chat, say it with me, you can be a part of a marginalized group, and simply being part of that group does not make you incapable of bigotry against that group or working with people who are bigoted against that group. That's not the case. If that wasn't the case, Candace Owens. She might weaponize the fact that she is a black woman to hide the fact or kind of like deflect from the fact that she literally works in her actual job to further the views and ideology of white supremacy. She's still a black woman, but that doesn't make what she's doing any less racist. Dave Rubin can say he's a gay man, but that doesn't stop him from espousing all this anti-gay rhetoric. So clearly, unless Dave Rubin is magically straight, unless Candace Owens is suddenly white, and unless like Blair White is suddenly cis, clearly people of a marginalized group can do damage to that same marginalized group. So I don't think that's the best defense. Especially considering if you go into Libs of TikTok's comment section, you'll find a lot of people who have questions about the Holocaust, for instance. Or you'll find a lot of people who are literally just openly neo-Nazis. Or you'll find a lot of people who peddle a lot of the white supremacist rhetoric that seems to have a lot of overlap with this kind of anti-trans hysteria. But this isn't just me saying it. Also, a communist Jesuit priest and editor-at-large of a Jesuit magazine, James Martin, is even willing to call this out. Perhaps one of the few based priests out there. Quote, LGBTQ people are, quote, just even, so quoting chaya, raichik here, this kind of language is used by every hate-mongering group seeking to eradicate the, quote, other. First, label them evil, then subhuman. It leads to harassment, violence, and death. The end goal is extermination. This is not hyperbolic, by the way. It's actually clear. If you look into the history of the Holocaust or the indigenous genocide in North America, there are a lot of parallels to a lot of what we're seeing today when it comes to the anti-queer hysteria we're currently in. Continuing, quote, the next time LGBTQ people are killed for being LGBTQ, the next time someone beats up an LGBTQ kid, the next time an LGBTQ youth is kicked out of their home for, quote, religious reasons, and the next time an LGBTQ youth commits suicide, we should return to this death-dealing interview. Because that's all it is. So Chaya Raichik was previously apparently a realtor. She realized that she could make a lot more money by peddling genocidal rhetoric about trans people, and now this is what she does. She gets Tucker Carlson interviews even before she was brave enough to show her face, and now she has. But it seems like that might have been of a misstep. Might have been a little bit of a misstep. There might have been a reason why she wanted to hide her identity. Not only because she's a coward, not only because, whatever worries she might have for her personal safety, but she doesn't share those same worries about the personal safety of a variety of, children at a children's hospital in Boston who got bomb threats after Libs of TikTok and Tucker Carlson, both featured in this video, posted lies about how that hospital was so-called mutilating kids or whatever. Don't worry about any of that. She's not worried about those people's well-being, just herself. Seems like she might have been at the Capitol on January 6th and trespassed, allegedly. No confirmations yet. This is from Chad Loader. Quote, newly released analysis of footage appears to show Chaya Raichik, the woman behind the Libs of TikTok account, trespassing on restricted grounds of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. So here she is, looking kind of bloated. Might have been all the adrenaline of being at the Capitol. Today, Chaya Raichik, a professional bigot whose anti-LGBTQ posts have been blamed for threats on Children's Hospital, revealed her face for the first time in an interview with Tucker Carlson, in which she called the LGBTQ community, quote, a cult. Raichik claimed to have been present at the January 6th Capitol riot and now deleted tweets. One of those tweets appears to show footage filmed from the northwest lawn of the Capitol. The full video is not available in the Internet Archive, unfortunately. So this is Chaya Ray on previous videos we've done on Libs of TikTok, which we will link to in the description. I think it was the first one we ever did on Libs of TikTok. We looked into her history, her posting history. Chaya Ray and a variety of other names she had. She had a habit of switching to different handles on Twitter, but kept the same account, which also coincidentally had her own name on it. So if she was very worried about getting her name out there, she kind of fucked herself over. But here's a video that unfortunately you can't play. But we have more. My analysis of the video footage leads me to believe that Chaya Raichik was not merely present near the Capitol on January 6th, but that she trespassed onto restricted Capitol grounds that day, Chad Loader writes. In the rest of this article, I'll walk you through the evidence I use to draw my conclusions so that you can form your own opinion. The evidence. Chaya Raichik's interview today on Tucker Carlson's show provided us with the first clear confirmed images of her face. In the interview, you can see that Raichik wears a distinctive ring on the fourth finger of her right hand. Here you go. Bada bing, bada boom. A photograph of the Trump rally on the Ellipse in D.C. on January 6 shows who I believe to be Chaya Raichik standing at a fence, wearing the same distinctive ring on the fourth finger of her right hand. It does look like her. I believe she's probably wearing less makeup here than she is on a Tucker Carlson program, because they probably have a makeup team there. So here, at the Capitol, you're not trying to look your best. Perhaps, some of these people aren't trying to be seen at all. But here she is. And I would say it's looking like her. It is looking like her. Same lip definition, same hair. I wish we could see the color of the eyes, but it's pretty dark under the MAGA hat. So here we have, an actual cult who showed up to do violence at the Capitol because their daddy didn't win an election. Note also the following details in this photo from the ellipse. You may need to zoom in. A dark coat, silver gray iPhone with the clear plastic case, black purse strap with white stitching and buckle, red MAGA hat with a flag visible on the left side, black hair tie or wristband on the right wrist. You can see the same woman who I believe to be Chaya Raichik with the same outfit and details in this TikTok video by user Hubes22C. This video was filmed on the steps of the Northwest Plaza of the Capitol. So here we have this thumb, and here we have this thumb right behind him. Look at that. Seems like the same person. The full TikTok video is only 24 seconds long, with other frames showing clearly where on Capitol grounds the video was filmed. This video was filmed on or near the steps leading from the Northwest Plaza to the lower West Plaza of the Capitol. You can see the woman holding an iPhone with a clear plastic case and a white battery charging cable plugged in, right here. The same woman appears in GoPro footage released by the government as Exhibit 4 in the federal criminal trial of Ronald Sandlin, who was recently sentenced to 63 months in prison for his role in the January 6th Capitol attack. The woman appears at roughly the 1 minute 49 second mark of the GoPro footage, the full version of which is over 10 minutes long. Sandlin himself can be seen in the orange jacket on the right side. This is a very, oh my god, you've spotted me. There is now video evidence of where I am and what I'm doing kind of face. Look at that. Record scratch, freeze frame. You might be wondering how I got here. In another video still from the same GoPro footage, you can see the woman is holding the same iPhone with a clear plastic case and a white charging cable plugged in. Looking very greasy. But I mean, so is everybody else here. In another photo published on January 10th, 2021 by Citizen Media News, you can see a wide shot of the crowd at the Northwest Plaza of the Capitol. I've drawn a green circle around a barely visible woman who I also believe to be Chaya Raichik with a similar hat, haircut with the ears poking out, and white phone cable. Right here. Here's a zoom-in cropped version showing the woman I've circled in green. Right here. Looking pretty similar, I have to say. Restricted grounds. The Ronald Sandlin evidence footage showing the same woman with the Capitol dome in the background was filmed at the northwest side of the Capitol lawn. The TikTok video shows the woman closer to the Capitol near the steps leading from the Northwest Plaza to the lower West Plaza. The wide-angled image of the crowd shows the same woman, circled in green in the above photo, standing on the steps between the lower West Plaza and the Northwest Plaza. See red arrow on the Capitol map below. This is well within the restricted area of the Capitol. Right here. Look at that. Wow. Imagine my shock. It's really a good thing that the people who decided to storm the Capitol also decided to film themselves committing federal crimes. Thank God. You know, the hubris and the lack of accountability in your life that would lead one to this kind of a decision is just icing on the cake, especially for law enforcement, who, in prosecuting a lot of the people who were complicit in this, are actually doing good for once. Excellent work, boys. Keep it up. The entire area outlined in red is referred to in court filings by federal prosecutors as, quote, restricted grounds. For example, in this filing in the criminal trial of Capitol rioters Jason Owens and Grady Owens, prosecutors write, quote, the exterior plaza of the U.S. Capitol was also closed to members of the public. Below pictured indicates all area within the red lines designated as a secure area with no public access, as previously referenced in the, quote, area closed by order of the United States Capitol Police Board. The red area outlined in the map below is roughly the same red area from the map included above, but with the map flipped 90 degrees. Wow. Conclusion. Based on the video and photographic evidence presented in this article, I believe that Chaya Raichik trespassed on restricted grounds at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, writes Chad Loader. As of this writing, federal prosecutors have not charged anyone merely for being on restricted grounds outside the Capitol on January 6th, unless those individuals also engaged in other overt criminal acts like attacking police or entering the Capitol building itself. I have not seen any evidence suggesting that the woman who I believe to be Chaya Raichik engaged in any violent or destructive acts that day, besides being present on restricted Capitol grounds. So, all of this is to say that I do believe that this is a convincing case. I do believe that this is Chaya Raichik. It seems pretty good, I think, as far as evidence goes. Now, I don't know that there's any way outside of this that you could ever confirm this unless she ends up getting charged for what has been alleged here, if there's anything else that wasn't caught on video that we have access to, or whatever it may be. But it's tremendously funny. It's actually very hilarious, and her getting charges, even if they're minor, if all she gets is a fine, I'm going to be laughing. Now, of course, if she does get a fine, she's just going to make a GoFundMe, and all of the absolute degenerates that follow her will absolutely be willing to siphon, money out of their mother's retirement fund to give to her in order to allow her to continue pushing her genocidal rhetoric to her fans when it comes to queer people. So that's whatever, but it's still funny. Also, I don't know that she would actually be charged with anything major. It's not like it's going to stop her from being able to be the owner of the Libs of TikTok account. It's just funny. That's really it. You know, her getting charged or whatever would just be schadenfreude or Freude, you know? It would just be, you know, a person who is very clearly and very despicable, horrible person, you know, having a bad day. It's just cool to see sometimes, you know? I don't think anything major would come of it. Just, you know, temper your expectations a little bit. But it is, you know, it's fun to see. But who knows? Maybe more happened. Maybe she did, you know, allegedly maybe attack somebody. I don't think that she has it in her to do that. Maybe she did. Maybe she, you know, did property damage. We never know. You never know. This is all alleged at this point. But we will be following the story as it develops. So here we have more from friend of the show, Mr. Surfs. Chaya Raichik suffers from Matt Walsh syndrome and that she's painfully boring to listen to, as we just saw in the Tucker Carlson video. She's too much of a pussy to be very excited, bombastic about what she believes, so she has to be extra extreme in her hate speech to seem remotely interesting. She lied on Tucker that she never used social media before Libs of TikTok when she actually used it for terrorism. Maybe she means she never used social media before Libs of TikTok, because I believe, if I remember correctly, this account is actually the same account as Libs of TikTok. She just changed her handle. It could be a different one, though. So here we have that video we saw in the previous one. Here, Chaya Ray, who has been confirmed to be her in the past, from January 6, 2021. This is Noah Rothman quote. I'm with Capitol Police and I heard on the radio shots fired, GOP leader. Chaya says, there were rubber bullets from law enforcement, one hit right next to me. So this is my thinking, okay? We've got all this video evidence that it might be her. It seems very likely in my opinion. But here are her own words. There were rubber bullets from law enforcement, one hit right next to me. My question is, if it was outside of restricted grounds that she was at, why would rubber bullets be flying? One of the major criticisms that people had, I believe on all sides of the aisle, was the fact that the Capitol Police were not sufficiently prepped for the Capitol riot that was literally planned on social media for months beforehand. That the Capitol Police were very understaffed at the time, and that is why they were even allowed to get that far to begin with. The rioters. So I don't know why they would be positioned outside of the restricted area, except for like literally at the border to stop people from getting in the restricted area. But we do know that that was, you know, that border was breached at one point because they entered the fucking Capitol. So if you are in that area, I don't know why rubber bullets are flying. So if one rubber bullet hit right next to her, then it seems like it would be pretty likely she was within restricted grounds and violating the law. Allegedly. She's so scared of rubber bullets while cheering on a mass shooter for killing queer people. Well, yeah, it's because it's finally happening to her. You know, consequences for her actions in that she was allegedly on restricted grounds in the Capitol and there was a riot, so rubber bullets were flying. You got to imagine she was cheering on the rubber bullets that were hitting people in the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer before last. But, you know, anyway. From Cat Turd back in 2021. How many Trump supporters will show up in Washington, D.C. on the 6th? So this is before it happened. Chaya said, quote, I am taking off work to come support Trump. Every single supporter matters. Don't think just because you are an average citizen without a Twitter following that you don't matter. Every single person matters. We owe it to Trump, who hasn't stopped fighting for us. So that was beforehand. So she's literally telegraphing that she intended to be there. Seems like she was. Just a guess, you know, just allegedly. There's another video that we can't see, tear gas in action. So if you're getting tear gas, you're going to be either around the border of the restricted area or in it, given what we know about the events that transpired. So here is the footage. So this is from NBC News Justice reporter Ryan J. Riley. Just to have a little bit more, you know, somebody who's working with or affiliated with NBC News. Just so there's some people who are more connected that are also looking into this, which is nice to see. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of mainstream media, generally speaking, but I always like it when they dip their toes into things like this. Here's some interesting footage from recent January 6th case. So this is the video from those screenshots. Let's see.
Go, 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 go!
Oh, who's that?
Get in the building!
Who's that?
Get
Who's
in
that?
the building! Me and my boy! Go, 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 go!
Who's that?
Go, go! Get in the building!
No way. We got moving pictures now. Hard to Photoshop this, I'll tell you that.
Get in the building!
It's a get in the building. So this is literally in the orange, the Ronnie Sandlin case we were just talking about, who was just sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for being here for the crimes that he was charged with. If, you know, she's right near him. Look at that. Who knows how far she went. I'm not too sure. But, you know, Ronnie Sandlin got. Just saying. If that is her, allegedly. Oh, why is this here? Excuse me, I didn't mean to click to this one. So, after all this comes out. I don't know that Chaya Raichik has addressed the allegations that she was at the 6th in restricted grounds or not yet. But after the Tucker Carlson interview, she is doubling down, apparently, on the delusions that she spouted on that program. Quote, they suck young people in, you're not allowed to notice, you're not allowed to be critical, you have to go along with it, you're called all sorts of slurs. What slurs are you called? What is the slur that she's referencing? Bigot? TERF? She's not a TERF. This bitch isn't a feminist. Are you insane? I don't believe that for a second. She probably thinks cisgender is a slur. Like, what slurs are people being called? It's probably TERF. We shouldn't fall for it. Also, I told you we would get to it. Apparently, Ian Miles Chong has decided to weigh in. Quote, libs at TikTok / Chaya Raichik appeared on Tucker Carlson's show to discuss the woke grooming cult. I'd add that while many of them fall in line because it's trendy, there's larger forces at play to dismantle Western civilization. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard this idea that there's a shadowy cabal of people that are trying to force people into transgenderism as a way to dismantle Western civilization? Maybe they're from a time, it might have been the 40s, 1940s, 30s, maybe? I think it sounds similar. I mean, come on. Also, what the fuck you mean, dismantle Western civilization? You live in Malaysia. You're not in Western civilization. What are you talking about, man? Come on. It's, by the way, I'm joking. I'm being a little goofy. It's the Jewish question. It is what it is. Like, neo-Nazis and Nazis have believed for a long time that so-called Jewish people, and they'll refer to that in a variety of terms other than just saying the Jews. They'll say globalists, the elites, the financial elite. They'll say Hollywood. There's a variety of dog whistles they use for it. They have said for a long time, they allege that Jewish people are, in their mind, pushing gayness on Western civilization, queerness on Western civilization, in order to weaken them, because for some reason these insane people believe that these super heterosexual, cis-normative people, tough guys, like, you know, Vladimir Putin's Russia, for instance, are like the strongest people out there, and that those countries can't possibly fall to ruin because they are not as gay as the West is. You know, Ukraine might have some words to say about that, though. It seems like Vladimir Putin's Russia, for as much as they puffed up their military being super masculine, got their shit pushed in by some dudes with HIMARS. Anyway. Alejandro Carabaro writes, Ian Miles Chong referencing the white supremacist great replacement theory. The white nationalists usually believe LGBTQ people are a Jewish plot to undermine the West. The Buffalo shooter, who literally traveled hours out of his way to find a predominantly black grocery store to essentially just do a mass murder of black people, also cited the great replacement white supremacist conspiracy theory that Tucker Carlson pushes, that even Chaya Raichik seems to be teetering on a little bit. The Buffalo shooter had anti-Semitic memes saying as much in his manifesto. But of course, you know, they disavow, even though they celebrate it behind closed doors. All of this to say is that this is not unsurprising, and this is also not, like, super damaging to Chaya Raichik, as much as you might wish it was. And, you know, I hope something more comes of it. She does have friends in high places at this point. You know, Tucker Carlson, the platform that he's on, Fox News, has a history of covering for sexual abusers and whatnot. They got lawyers. Maybe she's got some connections to good lawyers there. If she does end up getting charged with anything, who knows how far it'll go, or if she's even done anything past being on restricted grounds, which we haven't seen people getting, you know, charged or convicted for yet. But maybe it would be funny if she did. I don't know. That's all I have to say. I don't know where to end this. Is there anything I missed? I think we got it all.